Welcome back to another Millennial Minute. I'm David Grasso. Today's burning question: should remote workers pay a privilege tax? You've already heard from our commentators, Tahmineh Dehbozorgi and Nate Lerner. Well, you guys have different opinions on this topic. So Tahmineh, you say, no way. Why do you think that raising taxes during a recession pandemic on people who work from home is a bad idea?
Well, I think again, this is common sense because right now individuals are struggling with day-to-day life. And of course, a lot of people are working at home, but that doesn't mean necessarily that they're privileged or they have more income. Also, a lot of individuals had to spend more money while they're working at home to cover up for the job that they were doing in the office. For example, they had to spend money on devices, they had to spend money on schooling their kids. So it's not necessarily that those people actually have more money in their pocket so they can just pay taxes to the government. Also, another issue that I have with this specific policy is that the studies that have been done on this matter lack data and numbers, and they suggest a one size fits all policy that I found it extremely problematic, given that everyone is in a different situation given their employment. They have different jobs, they have different tiers of income. Someone who works from home is not necessarily someone who makes a lot of money.
Yeah. So Nate, I understand. I hear what you're saying. Obviously wealth gaps are a problem in this country, but are we going after the right people on a privilege tax from working from home, right? You mentioned billionaires getting a lot richer, right? But how about upper middle class people who are just kind of skating by? Life has become very expensive in this country. How can we make sure if there is a tax like this, that we're not taxing the wrong people and penalizing people for their success?
Mhm. Well, I think first and foremost, we do need to prioritize the billionaires tax. I know this discussion is more focused on a larger tax would affect everyone who's currently working from home. But I think if it's, we're talking about something that's 2.5%, 5%, that's a pretty modest tax increase. And I think people would understand it's temporary, it's short term. These are extenuating circumstances where you can't just say, oh, go out and get another job. These are people who literally cannot work right now because of the pandemic. They have no other option. Their skills, their experience only allow them to get jobs that would require that no longer exist in a pandemic or just have simply been erased. So we have to recognize that, and we have to recognize too that we can't just leave these people hanging. We're all in this together. And I certainly don't mind spending a little extra of my tax money on to help those people. And I think folks are also saving a lot of money right now. Overall, a lot of studies have shown that people have been saving a lot of money because they're not going out as much, they're not going to the movies, they're not going to bars, and you actually save a lot of money when you do that.
So Tahmineh, you don't think it's a good idea to raise taxes during a recession. I imagine economists would agree with you across the board on that front.
Yes, absolutely. And, given the current deficit, of course, this has been on a lot of people's mind that, yeah, government has spent a lot on stimulus or other things. And of course, we now have to make up for it. However, the issue is that current suggestion with the privilege tax or any taxes that have been on the table are not even nearly enough to close this gap. And I'm not saying that there should be more taxes. I'm saying there should not be any tax hike, especially given the pandemic, especially considering that a lot of people were forced to work from home. It wasn't a personal choice for them. And given that a lot of people had to, they lost their job. And just also, let's roll back a little, since Nate mentioned something about people not going to bars, people not spending money on other things. However, we should keep in mind that a lot of other sources of income are still in place. Like, people are still paying sales taxes, people are still spending money on a lot of goods and services that still contribute to the taxes. And the issue with this specific policy is that it does not really lay out any specific results. Like, when they say low income families, people with less income, or individuals with less buying power. Okay, what does that mean? There are no data, or there's no any specific guidelines for this policy, where this money is even going. There is no guarantee that this is not going to go any further, because of course a lot of people have projected that current economic situation will go beyond 2021. So I don't think this is going to be any immediate or even long-term solution.
So Nate, you'll get the last word here. We have a definite budget problem in this country, and maybe we're a little ahead of ourselves, right? Already talking about taxes, right? most people expect taxes to go up, right? Most people understand that the government is in a big fiscal hole that we need to recover. So isn't it a little hard to sell people on a temporary tax when you're dealing with the most heavily indebted government in human history? You know, we owe a lot of money. Obviously, we need tax reform, obviously, or spending reform, if you talk to conservatives. How do we tell people that it's a temporary tax when really we have a federal government that's essentially broke?
Well, I think we can. I mean, I think we can do it temporarily. If you look at Biden's tax plan, it doesn't include folks making less than $400,000. They're not going to see a tax increase. I think, we can tax more on capital gains. We can tax the wealthy more, tax corporations more. We can close a lot of the loopholes that allow those individuals and those companies to avoid paying taxes. But we have to recognize too that we have two classes right now. We have two economies right now. We have an economy that's doing pretty well. It's doing normal. And we have a separate economy that includes about 30, 40 million folks who are doing absolutely horrendous and are really, really struggling. And this is actually one of the reasons that Trump won this is one of the reasons Trump did better than expected and Biden didn't win in a landslide, is because the economy, despite looking bad on paper, actually normally a lot of normal people with jobs who were able to work remotely are doing just fine. And so as a result, you have these two economies. And I think we have to recognize that there's just no other solution to help the second economy, those people stuck at the bottom, than to take money from the rest of us and give it to them. So a small tax increase is a pretty reasonable way to do that. And I think, as you said, we have a big money problem in our country. So the money's got to come from somewhere. And I think taxes make a lot of sense.
Well, cool. Well, thank you both for being here for this really important debate. I think we all recognize that, the schism has grown and it's greatly concerning. So we appreciate your thought leadership on these solutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. Be sure to consume our content at Bold TV on most social media platforms. We'll see you soon.